Imagine losing everything, your career, your reputation, your entire life, because of one small act of kindness. Sophie Thompson thought she was just helping a homeless man, but what she didn't know was that this stranger was hiding a powerful secret. A secret so dangerous, it cost her her job and almost ruined her life. But sometimes, the most unexpected people turn out to be the key to uncovering the biggest conspiracies. Stay tuned as we dive into this gripping story of betrayal, redemption, and the incredible twist that no one saw coming. If you're enjoying the story so far and want to hear more incredible tales just like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what happens next. And if you love storytelling as much as we do, give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Let's keep these amazing stories alive together. The morning of March 14th was just like any other Monday for Sophie Thompson. She stood in front of her mirror, quickly brushing out her long brown hair while mentally preparing herself for the day ahead. Sophie worked as a senior manager at Ellington Corporate, a renowned advertising firm known for its cutthroat work culture. She had spent nearly 8 years climbing the corporate ladder, sacrificing weekends, relationships, and sleep for success. Ellington was a place of high expectations and little room for mistakes. The corporate office sat in the heart of New York City, a stone's throw away from Wall Street. Sophie had become a familiar face, not only because of her sharp eye for marketing strategies but because of her strong sense of empathy, something that often set her apart from her cold, result-driven colleagues. As she grabbed her coffee and headed out the door of her modest Brooklyn apartment, Sophie didn't know that the encounter waiting for her outside the office building would change her life forever. The morning was crisp as she stepped onto the busy streets. People rushed to their destinations, their eyes glued to their phones, barely noticing the world around them. When Sophie arrived at the glass facade of the Ellington building, she noticed him. A disheveled man sat hunched over on a cardboard box, wearing a frayed brown jacket and holding a sign that read, "Lost my way, just need a chance." His face was obscured by a scruffy beard, but his eyes, dark and deep, struck her. There was something familiar about them. She felt a pang of sympathy that she couldn't ignore. "Hey, you all right?" Sophie asked as she approached him. He looked up slowly, his expression guarded. "I'm fine," he mumbled, his voice hoarse. "Just down on my luck." Sophie reached into her bag and pulled out the sandwich she had packed for lunch. "Here, I know it's not much, but—" No, I couldn't possibly take that from you," he said, waving his hand dismissively. "Please, it's no trouble," she insisted, placing the sandwich on the ground next to him. She caught a glimpse of his tired eyes once more before stepping into the building. She could still feel them following her as she swiped her employee badge and disappeared into the sleek, modern lobby. Little did she know, this small act of kindness would ripple through her life in ways she couldn't have imagined. Sophie's day started normally enough. She sat through back-to-back meetings, working through campaign strategies and pitching new ideas for Ellington's elite clientele. But by midday, things began to shift. Around 1 p.m., her phone buzzed with a message from her assistant, Jade. "Sophie, Mr. Ellington wants to see you in his office ASAP. He doesn't look happy." Sophie's heart skipped a beat. Mr. Ellington rarely summoned people directly. His office, perched on the top floor, was usually reserved for discussions of the utmost importance. A mixture of anxiety and confusion settled in her chest as she made her way to the elevator. The doors opened with a soft chime, revealing the dimly lit office of Walter Ellington, the CEO and founder of Ellington Corporate. He was a man in his mid-60s with silver hair, sharp features, and an air of authority. Behind him, the skyline of New York City stretched across the horizon, bathed in afternoon light. "Ms. Thompson," he began, his voice cold and measured, "I've been made aware of a rather interesting incident that occurred this morning." Sophie blinked in confusion. "Incident?" "Yes," Mr. Ellington said, steepling his fingers as he leaned back in his leather chair. "I've been informed that you interacted with a homeless man outside our building." Sophie's mind raced. She hadn't realized anyone was watching. "I didn't think it was an issue, sir. I was just trying to help." Mr. Ellington's expression hardened. "While your intentions may have been kind, I need you to understand that we have an image to uphold. This company thrives on prestige and reputation. Any association with vagrants, no matter how small, can damage our standing. But he was just a man down on his luck, Sophie argued, her voice steady but filled with disbelief. I didn't think giving him a sandwich would be a problem. Mr. Ellington's eyes narrowed. This is not a charity, Ms. Thompson. We are a business. And in business, perception is everything. Sophie felt a lump form in her throat. Are you saying I'm being reprimanded for showing kindness? I'm saying that you need to be more mindful of your actions, he replied sharply. Consider this your first and only warning. Next time, the consequences will be more severe. Sophie left his office in a daze, her mind reeling from the conversation. How could helping someone in need be so controversial? She couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong with this place. But what she didn't know was that this was only the beginning. The days that followed felt like a blur to Sophie. She kept her head down, avoided further attention from Mr. Ellington, and tried to focus on her work. But she couldn't stop thinking about the homeless man. Every time she left the building, she scanned the sidewalk, hoping to catch a glimpse of him, but he was never there. It wasn't until Friday afternoon, as she was leaving the office, that she saw him again. He was sitting on the same cardboard box, staring at the pavement as people rushed by. This time, Sophie felt compelled to approach him again. Hey, she said softly, crouching down to his level. I've been looking for you. I wanted to make sure you were all right. The man looked up, surprise flickering across his face. You remember me? Of course, Sophie replied. What's your name? He hesitated for a moment before answering. David. David Fletcher. Sophie frowned. The name rang a bell, but she couldn't place it. Well, David, I'm Sophie. I know things are tough right now, but if you need help, I can try to... You shouldn't be seen talking to me, David interrupted, his tone urgent. Trust me, it's not safe. Sophie was taken aback. What do you mean? Just go back to your office, he muttered, standing up abruptly and walking away. Sophie watched him disappear into the crowd, her heart pounding. Something about his warning unsettled her deeply. Why would he say it wasn't safe to talk to him? Who exactly was David Fletcher? Over the weekend, Sophie couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. She decided to dig deeper into David's background, hoping to find some answers. After hours of searching online, she stumbled upon a shocking discovery. David Fletcher wasn't just any homeless man. He was once the CEO of a major tech company, Horizon Dynamics, which had risen to prominence about 5 years ago. His face had been plastered all over business magazines and news articles. But then, a massive scandal had erupted, a financial conspiracy that led to the collapse of the company. David had been accused of embezzling millions of dollars from investors and had vanished from the public eye after his company's downfall. The more Sophie read, the more her heart sank. The David Fletcher she had met on the street wasn't just some down-on-his-luck stranger. He was a man with a past, and it was clear that his fall from grace had been catastrophic. But as she continued to sift through articles and news reports, something didn't add up. There were whispers in online forums and anonymous comments suggesting that David had been framed. Some believed he had been set up by powerful people within the industry, people who stood to gain from his downfall. Sophie's mind raced. Could it be true? Had David been wrongfully accused and left to rot on the streets while someone else profited from his destruction? Determined to find out the truth, Sophie decided to confront David again. She waited outside the office building on Monday morning, scanning the sidewalk for any sign of him. Finally, after what felt like hours, she spotted him in the distance, walking with a limp and clutching his jacket tightly against the cold. David, she called out, jogging over to him. He turned slowly, his eyes widening in surprise. You again? I told you it's not safe. I know who you are, Sophie said, her voice firm. I know about Horizon Dynamics. I know what happened to you. David's face darkened. You shouldn't be digging into that, he muttered, glancing around nervously. They're watching. Who's watching? Sophie demanded. Tell me what's going on. I want to help. David hesitated, his gaze flickering between her and the busy street. Finally, he sighed and gestured for her to follow him. They walked several blocks in silence before stopping in a quiet alleyway. You don't know what you're getting yourself into, David said, his voice low and grave. The people who took me down are powerful. They control everything: money, politics, the media. If they find out you've been talking to me, they won't hesitate to ruin your life too. Sophie swallowed hard, but she didn't back down. I don't care. You don't deserve to live like this. If you were framed, we need to expose them. David shook his head. It's not that simple. I tried to fight back once, and look where it got me. Sophie's mind raced with possibilities. If what David was saying was true, then this was bigger than anything she had ever imagined. But she couldn't just walk away. Not now. I'm not afraid of them, Sophie said, her voice steady. Let me help you. David stared at her for a long moment before finally nodding. All right, but if we're going to do this, we need to be smart. They're watching every move we make. Over the next few weeks, Sophie and David worked together to uncover the truth. They gathered evidence, interviewed former employees of Horizon Dynamics, and pieced together the puzzle of the conspiracy that had brought David down. But as they delved deeper, things began to spiral out of control. Sophie noticed strange men following her on her way home. Her phone would often buzz with odd messages, and there were days when she felt like she was being watched from every corner. Then, one fateful afternoon, Sophie was called into a meeting with the board of directors. She knew something was wrong the moment she stepped into the conference room and saw Mr. Ellington sitting at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. Ms. Thompson, he began slowly, we've become aware of your extracurricular activities. It seems you've been consorting with someone of ill repute. Sophie's blood ran cold. We can't have someone like you representing this company, Mr. Ellington continued. Effective immediately, you are terminated. Sophie's firing hit her like a freight train, but she refused to give up. With nothing left to lose, she threw herself fully into the investigation. She and David finally uncovered irrefutable proof of his innocence, documents, hidden emails, and financial records that exposed the true criminals behind the conspiracy. With this evidence in hand, they took their findings to a prominent investigative journalist. The story broke on every major news outlet, revealing the depth of corruption that had destroyed David's life. The truth was out. And while Sophie had lost her job, she had gained something far more valuable: a sense of justice and a lifelong friend in David. Months later, as Sophie sat in a small cafe with David, watching the news report on the ongoing investigation into the scandal, she smiled to herself. Life had taken an unexpected turn, but she had no regrets. David, now clean-shaven and dressed in a suit, turned to her and said, I owe you everything, Sophie. You saved my life. She shook her head. We saved each other. And in that moment, Sophie knew that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could lead to the most extraordinary outcomes.